Abelisaurus. Abelisaurus was a large predatory dinosaur from the late Cretaceous time period. This dinosaur's skull was 3 feet long, and from the shape of its large sharp teeth, it is clear that Abelisaurus was a carnivore or meat-eater. Abelisaurus weighed over 1.5 tons and lived in Argentina, a country on the continent of South America. Acrocanthosaurus. Acrocanthosaurus was a North American carnivore found in the southwestern United States. This 25-foot dinosaur had a distinctive row of spines running along its neck, back, and tail. When covered with skin, these spines formed a ridge or sail, which may have been used for display or for venting excess heat. Acrocanthosaurus stood 10 feet tall and weighed 2 to 3 tons. Adasaurus. Adasaurus was a small bird-like dinosaur from the late Cretaceous period. This carnivore was 7 feet long and weighed a mere 30 to 35 pounds. Nonetheless, it was not named the demon lizard without cause. Adasaurus had toe claws that could slice through a victim's flesh better than the sharpest blade. Fossilized remains of this active predator were found in Mongolia, and Asian paleontologist Rinken Barsbold gave Adasaurus its name in 1983. Egyptosaurus. Egyptosaurus was a medium to large sauropod that was discovered in Egypt by R. Markgraf in the early 1930s. During World War II, however, a bombing raid destroyed this and other dinosaur fossils, so very little is known about the plant eater. Ernst Stromer von Reichenbach named Egyptosaurus in 1932. Agrosaurus. Agrosaurus was a small prosauropod known from only a claw and several bones. Paleontologists believe that this early Jurassic plant eater was similar to Picodontosaurus and Ankylosaurus. Harry G. Seeley named Agrosaurus, meaning field lizard, in 1891. Alamosaurus. One of the last great plant-eating dinosaurs existing on Earth was Alamosaurus. It was one of the only large sauropods still alive 65 million years ago. It shared its North American home with numerous ornithopods which were tiny in comparison. Alamosaurus was about 70 feet long, but was still not safe from the carnivorous dinosaurs such as Albertosaurus, Tyrannosaurus, and Daspletosaurus. Albertosaurus. Albertosaurus was a fearsome predator during the Cretaceous period in North America. 30 feet long, this meat-eater was smaller than its successor, Tyrannosaurus rex, thinner boned, and probably much faster. Like Tyrannosaurus, Albertosaurus stood on strong legs and had tiny, seemingly useless arms. Albertosaurus had a pair of bumps over its eyes, a longer snout, and its sharp teeth pointed backward. Electrosaurus. Electrosaurus was a member of the family Tyrannosauridae, the group of large carnivorous dinosaurs. Electrosaurus was similar to Albertosaurus, but was only 16 feet long and weighed about half a ton. Overall, this meat-eater was slighter in build than others of its type, and its long hind legs probably enabled it to run very fast in pursuit of a meal. Electrosaurus means eagle lizard, and this dinosaur may have been aptly named after this predator. Although its teeth were smaller than those of Albertosaurus, they were every bit as sharp, making this Asian dinosaur an intimidating presence in the late Cretaceous times. Abelisaurus. Abelisaurus was an unusual member of the family Tyrannosauridae. It had a flat, elongated skull upon which there were bony knobs. This 20-foot Asian predator was also smaller and lighter than its North American relatives. Like all tyrannosaurs, Abelisaurus was a carnivore, or meat-eater, with long, sharp teeth. Allosaurus. Allosaurus was a huge, powerful carnivore that preceded Tyrannosaurus by 50 million years. Undoubtedly the terror of its time, Allosaurus probably stalked old or weak plant eaters like Apatosaurus or joined with others of its kind to hunt in packs. The average Allosaurus was 35 to 40 feet long, weighing 2 to 3 tons. It had horny bumps over its eyes and a prominent ridge of bone running down its snout. Many skeletons of Allosaurus have been found. The magnificent skull contained long, serrated teeth in its massive jaws. Allosaurus ran on powerful hind legs and used its short, three-clawed forelimbs to grasp its prey. Amosaurus. Amosaurus was an early Jurassic prosauropod whose name means sand lizard. Discovered in Connecticut and Arizona, this dinosaur was 8 feet long with a bulky body and long neck and tail. Amosaurus had small feet, but its hands were large with sizable thumb claws. Scientists believe Amosaurus may have been able to stand on 2 legs while reaching for food, but like its sauropod descendants, it primarily walked on 4 legs. Anchiceratops. Viewed by many as a successor to Chasmosaurus, this horned plant-eater once inhabited the wet, swampy areas of North America where ferns, cypress, and cycads grew in abundance. This dinosaur's most distinctive feature was its neck frill, which was long and rectangular with small openings to lighten its weight. Large, bony knobs adorned the back of the frill, expanding to short, triangular spikes that pointed backward. Anchiceratops had an extraordinarily long nose, a small nasal horn, medium-sized brow horns, and a shorter tail than most of its kind. Anchisaurus. Anchisaurus from the early Jurassic time period is one of the oldest dinosaurs found in North America. It was a small prosauropod, 7 to 8 feet long, weighing only 60 pounds. It had blunt teeth designed to eat ferns and soft leaves, and thumb claws it probably used to dig for roots or other vegetation. Anchisaurus was a forerunner of the hadrosaurs and ornithopods of later periods. Ankylosaurus. Ankylosaurus was a large armored dinosaur, one of the last species surviving until the worldwide extinction that took place approximately 64 million years ago. Ankylosaurus grew to be 23 to 30 feet long, 14 to 16 feet wide, and tipped the scales at 4 tons. This plant eater was slow moving, but was not easy prey for its carnivorous neighbors. Ankylosaurus had elliptical plates of bone that protected it from head to tail. In addition, Ankylosaurus had a thick, tough hide, spikes from its jaw and skull, and a bony tail club it could swing to defend itself against meat-eating predators. Anseramimus. In 1988, Mongolian paleontologist Rinken Barsbold gave Anseramimus its name, which means goose mimic. Anseramimus was a 10-foot-long ornithomimid that was described from a single skeleton found without a skull. Its forelimbs were stronger than others in its family, and it had flat claws on its hands designed for digging up roots, eggs, and insects. Antarctosaurus. During the late Cretaceous period, the continent of South America was close to the Arctic Circle, which is how this dinosaur got its name. Its bones were found in present-day Argentina and Brazil. Antarctosaurus was an enormous sauropod. Despite the size of its huge body, its head was tiny, and its teeth were so weak that it must have eaten only the softest plants. Attaining lengths of up to 100 feet, Antarctosaurus was the giant of its time, occupying itself finding food and avoiding predators. Abelisaurus. Most people know this huge sauropod by its second name, Brontosaurus. However, its appropriate scientific name is Abelisaurus. This herbivore grew to be 70 feet long and weighed 30 tons, which is as heavy as 5 adult elephants. It had a comparatively tiny head with small plant-eating teeth. Because of its great size, Abelisaurus had to feed constantly, moving day and night in search of fresh food. Its only defense against carnivorous predators such as Allosaurus was its weight and its tail. Abelisaurus's hind legs were strong enough to bear the animal's entire body weight. Abelisaurus could rear up, then bear down, using its sheer bulk to crush its attacker. In addition, Abelisaurus had muscles supporting its long tail, which tapered to a very narrow width toward the end. It probably swung its tail around, using it as an enormous whip to ward off its enemies. It may have well taken more than one meat eater to overcome this giant late Jurassic sauropod that roamed North America. Aragosaurus. Aragosaurus was a huge four-legged herbivore with a long neck and tail. It had a thick, chunky body and a short, deep-set head. This late Cretaceous sauropod was named in 1987 from fossils of tail bones and a shoulder blade. The discovery of these bones in eastern Spain was especially exciting, as it marked the first time a new dinosaur was unearthed in this country. Abelisaurus. No skeleton has been found of Abelisaurus. It is known only from an incomplete skull that revealed differences between hadrosaurs' upper and lower teeth that scientists were not aware of previously. This duck-billed dinosaur found in the Soviet Union had a high, broad, hooked nasal arch in front of its eyes. Apparently, its upper jaw contained as many as 30 rows of teeth, with several teeth in each row. The back of Abelisaurus' skull was very high and wide, indicating that it had long muscles for chewing. Archaeopteryx. Many paleontologists view Archaeopteryx as a link between dinosaurs and modern birds. 6 well-known fossils of this airborne dinosaur exist, the most exciting of which was found in southern Germany. Clear wing impressions complete with feathers were found preserved in limestone. The body of this creature was similar to those of the smaller predatory dinosaurs, yet it had feathers and a wingspan of 2 feet. Archaeopteryx had thin, sharp teeth in its jaws. It probably ate lizards and a variety of other small animals. Argyrosaurus. Argyrosaurus was a 65 to 70 foot titanosaurid from South America. This huge plant eater had enormous limbs, with thigh bones up to 6.5 feet in length. Argyrosaurus had a shorter neck and tail, but a bulkier body than its fellow sauropod Apatosaurus. Herds of Argyrosaurus roamed in Argentina. Argentina means land of silver, hence the name Argyrosaurus, which means silver lizard. Rhinoceratops. This rare ceratopsian had pointy nose and brow horns and a studded neck frill. A rhinoceratops was smaller than Triceratops, but larger than Chasmosaurus, blending traits from both of its late Cretaceous relatives. Few traces of this dinosaur have been found. It was either uncommon or it inhabited areas that lacked suitable conditions for fossilization to occur. Abelisaurus. Abelisaurus was found in the United States, Canada, and China. It lived during the late Cretaceous time period and was similar to Tyrannosaurus, only smaller and lighter, weighing about 500 pounds. Abelisaurus was a carnivore, or meat-eating dinosaur, that had long, smooth fangs and a pointy snout. Abelisaurus. The limited information that is known about Abelisaurus is based on one incomplete skeleton that was found in Montana in 1981. 7.5 feet in length, Abelisaurus was slightly smaller than Protoceratops and was a member of the same group of ceratopsids. It had a heavy jaw and neck frill, but it is not known if Abelisaurus had any horns, as the top part of its skull was missing. The artist's rendering of Abelisaurus shows reconstruction based upon a combination of bones found and the structure of related dinosaurs. Abelisaurus. Abelisaurus was a 5-foot theropod whose name means bird mimic. Abelisaurus lived in Asia in the late Cretaceous period. It had a large brain and long legs, enabling it to run very quickly. Although it resembled the ornithomimids, Abelisaurus was classified separately, as it appeared to have had feathered forearms or wings. Soviet paleontologists disagree as to whether or not this bird-like dinosaur could fly. Abelisaurus was an omnivore, sustaining itself on plants, insects, and small lizards. Bactrosaurus. Bactrosaurus was an Asian duck-billed dinosaur from the late Cretaceous time period. Averaging 15 to 20 feet in length, Bactrosaurus was small to medium-sized for a hadrosaur. It had a long, flat head, and it ate a variety of plant material. No complete Bactrosaurus skeleton has been unearthed, but many bones have been found in the Gobi Desert. Bagaceratops. Bagaceratops was a small protoceratopsid, a primitive member of the family of horned dinosaurs. It had a chunky body low to the ground and indications of the horns and neck frills characteristic of its descendants. Like all members of this family, Bagaceratops was an herbivore that moved slowly, walking on all 4 legs. It had a toothless upper beak and a short horn emerging from the middle of its tapering snout. Bagaceratops lived during the latter part of the Cretaceous period. Fossilized remains of this 3 to 3.5 foot dinosaur were discovered in Asia. Barapasaurus. Barapasaurus is the only sauropod found in India and is the oldest in the world. This huge plant eater is known from leg bones, vertebrae, and several spoon-shaped teeth. Barapasaurus had a long neck and tail and grew to be 60 feet long. Even the earliest sauropods were gigantic, for Barapasaurus was almost as large as its descendant Diplodocus. Later sauropods had hollowed out portions of bone, but Barapasaurus's body was heavy. Only the neck vertebrae were hollow. Barosaurus. Barosaurus was a gigantic 4-legged herbivore that grew to be 75 to 90 feet long. It had a longer neck and shorter tail than Diplodocus and was also heavier than this related sauropod. The name Barosaurus in fact means heavy lizard. This dinosaur's neck was 30 feet long and it had a small head and a bulky body. Fossilized remains of Barosaurus have been found in the western United States and Tanzania, Africa. Baryonyx. This unusual theropod lived in Europe during the early part of the Cretaceous period. Its 2 most distinctive features were its claws and its jaws. Baryonyx had huge curved claws over 12 inches long on its forefeet. Many scientists believe that this dinosaur may have used these claws to hook fish in the same fashion as modern bears. Baryonyx also had an atypically long, flat skull with a snout similar to a crocodile's. Within its jaws were a large number of small, sharply pointed teeth. Licanosaurus. Licanosaurus was a prosauropod from the late Triassic period. Fossilized remains of this dinosaur were discovered in the Lower Elliott Formation in South Africa. This large, hefty herbivore walked on all 4 legs. Its back legs were bulkier than most herbivores of this type, and its ankle bones were stronger and heavier as well. Brachiosaurus. This enormous sauropod from the late Jurassic period was one of the heaviest creatures that ever lived. It weighed 85 to 100 tons, which was 3 times the weight of Apatosaurus. Brachiosaurus had an extremely long neck, enabling it to reach the highest leaves. Its neck vertebrae were over 3 times as long as its back vertebrae and were carefully constructed to hold heavy weight. Brachiosaurus's front legs were longer than its back legs, further increasing its reach in the same fashion as modern giraffes. Unlike most large sauropods, Brachiosaurus had strong chisel-like teeth to chop and grind plants. Brachyceratops. This small ceratopsid was closely related to Monoclonius and Centrosaurus. It had a stout nasal horn and bony knobs over its eyes. Framing its skull was a medium-sized frill of bone characteristic of the horned dinosaurs. 5 partial skeletons of Brachyceratops were found together in one site in Montana. This fact, combined with the small size of the dinosaur, has led some paleontologists to believe that this group may have been comprised of nestmates. The 5-foot length recorded and presented here, therefore, may not have been the true size of Brachyceratops when it was fully grown. Brachylophosaurus. Brachylophosaurus was a 30-foot duck-billed dinosaur that was native to North America throughout the late Cretaceous period. Brachylophosaurus had a wide, flat crest of bone above its eyes that distinguished it from other hadrosaurs. The position and shape of this crest was much like a shield, offering protection to its skull. Scientists theorize that this duckbill may have butted heads with others of its kind, as do certain species of modern goats and rams. In other ways, Brachylophosaurus had much in common with its relatives. It had the typical flat bill, batteries of cheek teeth, and a large horny beak with which it snipped off twigs and plants to satisfy its hunger. Calavosaurus. Calavosaurus was a mid-Jurassic herbivore that was found in southern England. This dinosaur was similar to Camptosaurus, but smaller, about 11 to 12 feet long. Very little is known about Calavosaurus, as all that was found was a single thigh bone. British paleontologist Peter M. Galton named Calavosaurus in 1980. Camarasaurus. Camarasaurus was probably the most common North American sauropod of the late Jurassic period. This giant plant-eater was thick-set with strong, powerful limbs. Its name means chambered lizard, as it had hollow pockets in its spinal bones to lighten its weight without sacrificing its sturdiness. Even so, Camarasaurus weighed about 20 tons and fed on tough plants. This dinosaur's head was larger than most sauropods, and it had unusually large, thick spoon-shaped teeth. Many believe that Camarasaurus ate pine needles, horsetails, and similar plants. At the Carnegie Museum of Natural History, Camarasaurus's head was mistakenly placed on an Apatosaurus's body, and it stayed that way for 75 years. Camptosaurus. Unlike most dinosaurs of the late Jurassic period, Camptosaurus was relatively small and deer-like. A distant relative of Iguanodon, Camptosaurus has a long snout, a small beak, and strong chisel-like teeth. It used these teeth to crush the tough plants it sought when foraging for food. Camptosaurus was agile and muscular. It had to be to survive. Running swiftly was its only defense against meat-eaters like Allosaurus and Ceratosaurus. Carcharodontosaurus. This medium-sized carnivore lived in northern Africa during the Cretaceous time period. Carcharodontosaurus was 26 feet long, and its build was slighter than that of the large tyrannosaurs. This dinosaur's large jaws were filled with shark-like teeth to tear into the flesh of its prey. German paleontologist Ernst Stromer von Reichenbach named Carcharodontosaurus in 1931. Carnotaurus. This meat-eating bull is known from only one fairly complete skeleton found in southern Argentina. The discovery was especially important because the best skin impressions ever obtained from a theropod were also preserved, revealing flat, rounded scales that did not overlap as they do in modern reptiles. Carnotaurus had thick horns above unusually small eyes, short, wide hands, and oddly shaped vertebrae along its back and tail. Many South American dinosaurs developed unique features, lending credence to the theory that this landmass was apart from the rest of the world in Cretaceous times. Centrosaurus. Centrosaurus lived during the late Cretaceous period. Named by dinosaurologist Lawrence Lambie, the remains of this ceratopsid were found in 1902 in Alberta, Canada. Many of the details now known about Centrosaurus were gleaned from the spectacular discovery of an entire herd of these dinosaurs found preserved in a riverbed. Scientists presume the herd met its demise in a flood while attempting to ford the river millions of years ago. Centrosaurus was similar in structure to Monoclonius, but it had a unique formation of horn-like projections curving around the back of its bony neck frill. Ceratosaurus. Ceratosaurus was an allosaur, part of a group of dinosaurs that preceded the larger tyrannosaurs. This fierce predator lived in North America during the late Jurassic period. The name Ceratosaurus, meaning horned lizard, was applied because of this meat-eater's large skull, which had a bony ridge on the forehead and a bumpy crest on the snout. Small plates lined its back and tail. Ceratosaurus had long, curved teeth, short arms, and clawed fingers and toes. Cetiosaurus. This late Jurassic sauropod grew to a length of 49 feet. Named in 1927, Cetiosaurus means whale lizard. Found in southern England and possibly Switzerland, Cetiosaurus had many features in common with its American relative Diplodocus. Although it was only half the size, it had a similar build with a whiplash tail and peg-like teeth. Cetiosaurus. Enormous bones belonging to this sauropod were found in 1809 before the word dinosaur even existed. Cetiosaurus, meaning whale lizard, was the name applied to this mysterious monster that many believe came from the sea. Cetiosaurus lived during the mid-Jurassic period, predating even larger herbivores such as Abelisaurus and Diplodocus. Fossilized remains of this 60-foot herbivore were found in Europe and Africa. Chasmosaurus. Chasmosaurus was a 17-foot-long, 2.5-ton member of the family Ceratopsidae. It had a large heart-shaped piece of bone called a frill framing its head and a short horn on its nose. The pair of brow horns it had varied in size from one individual to the next, perhaps related to age or gender. Coelophysis. Coelophysis was a small, fleet-footed predator whose discovery revealed a gruesome detail. Two of the skeletons found had skeletons of smaller dinosaurs in their stomachs, which is not unusual for carnivorous dinosaurs. However, the digested animals were juveniles of the same species that had been swallowed whole by the adults. Coelophysis was 10 feet long, but its body was only slightly larger than a modern turkey. It had numerous knife-like teeth. In addition to its cannibalistic ways, Coelophysis is believed to have eaten fish, lizards, insects, and other small dinosaurs. The complete skeletons of Coelophysis found in New Mexico are from the Triassic period, perhaps the oldest ever found in the United States. Coelurus. This 6-foot-long predator from the late Jurassic period was named Hollowtail because it had thin, slender bones and hollow-tail vertebrae. Coelurus was a small meat-eater with clawed 3-fingered hands, but little else is known about its physical characteristics. Named in 1879 by Othniel Marsh, Coelurus was found in the Morrison Formation of Wyoming along with Allosaurus, Apatosaurus, Brachiosaurus, Ceratosaurus, and Stegosaurus. Coloradosaurus. Discovered in Argentina, Coloradosaurus was a 13-foot prosauropod that lived during the latter part of the Triassic period. Coloradosaurus had a long body with a small, blunt-snouted head. Its dull teeth were designed for a diet of soft plant material. This dinosaur has been classified as a member of the family of Plateosaurs, medium-sized herbivores that preceded the giant Jurassic sauropods. Compsognathus. Weighing only 6 pounds and measuring 2 feet long, Compsognathus was one of the smallest adult dinosaurs ever discovered. It moved quickly, darting about like a bird on long, thin legs. Unlike other theropods, this little dinosaur's hands had only 2 clawed fingers. Compsognathus was a predator that used its small, sharp teeth to eat insects, lizards, and other creatures. The name Compsognathus means pretty jaw. Gonchoraptor. Gonchoraptor was a small, agile theropod from Asia, whose name means conch stealer. Many scientists believe that this dinosaur ate the soft meat inside of mollusks or shellfish by crushing the hard shell with its unusually strong, toothless beak. Gonchoraptor had no teeth at all in its jaws. Some speculate that it may also have eaten eggs, as did its relative Oviraptor. The average Gonchoraptor was only 4 feet long, but was built to move quickly to avoid predators and perhaps to steal food, as its name suggests. Corythosaurus. Corythosaurus was a common dinosaur in western North America during the late Cretaceous period. It was 30 to 35 feet long, with a heavy body and crested head. Like all hadrosaurs, Corythosaurus was a plant eater with a horny beak and batteries of cheek teeth. This dinosaur's crest was hollow, forming a nasal cavity that doubled as a resonating chamber for the low-pitched trumpeting or honking sounds scientists believe it might have made. Dinosaurus. Dinosaurus was an armored dinosaur from Europe, related to Stegosaurus, though much smaller in size. Scientists surmise that this dinosaur's plates and spines were either for protection against predators or to help regulate body temperature, although new theories as to their purpose may yet be introduced. Dinosaurus ate low-lying plants and lived in Europe during late Jurassic times. Its most distinguishing feature was the prominent set of spikes on its tail. Abelisaurus. Named in 1986, Abelisaurus was an 80-foot member of the family of brachiosaurs, which were large sauropods dominant during much of the Jurassic time period. Abelisaurus was a long-necked browsing dinosaur whose shape was similar to that of a giraffe. The shoulders were higher than the hips, and the front legs were longer than the back legs, allowing extended reach into treetops. In addition, Abelisaurus was proportioned in a way that would have made it able to rest its great weight on its back legs and tail, rearing up to grab leaves or fend off an attacking predator. Dinosaurus. Although this carnivore was much smaller than its well-known relative Tyrannosaurus, it still weighed nearly 4 tons. It was also a formidable predator, able to overcome the largest horned plant eaters that shared its North American habitat. Dinosaurus had huge, knife-shaped teeth with serrated edges, strong jaws, and a flexible neck, all of which helped it capture and devour its prey. The thick, muscular body and clawed fingers and toes served this meat eater well. Dinosaurus. Living in Asia during the early Jurassic period, Dinosaurus was one of the earliest sauropods. It had a shorter neck and larger head than the later plant eaters. In fact, its name means large-headed lizard. Dinosaurus was 48 feet long and used its large spoon-shaped teeth to tear buds and leaves from trees. Dinosaurus. Dinosaurus remains one of the most puzzling mysteries in the dinosaur world. Its name means horrible claw, given to it because its forelimbs were 8 feet long, culminating in enormously large claws. Unfortunately, these arms and a few ribs were all that was found of this intriguing reptile. Scientists believe that Dinosaurus may have been a huge ornithomimid. In any case, it was a theropod, and its 10-inch claws clearly suggest that this dinosaur was an active predator. Deinonychus. Although it was only 8 feet long, this fierce, agile predator had a large head with sharp teeth and was capable of great speed and deadly attacks. Deinonychus had many distinguishing features. The second toe on each foot ended in an extremely long curved claw, giving the genus its name meaning terrible claw. It is likely that Deinonychus grabbed its victims with its hands and jaws while inflicting deadly wounds to the belly with its knife-like claws. Deinonychus had a flexible tail used to balance itself when running. It could swing its tail up and down or side to side as it stalked and menaced petrified plant-eaters. Denversaurus. Denversaurus was a 15-foot nodosaur that was found in South Dakota in 1988. Little is known about this armored dinosaur, as all that was found was a crushed skull. But scientists believe that Denversaurus was probably a close relative of Edmontonia. Denversaurus had a short, sloping head that was angled to facilitate the consumption of flowers and other low-lying vegetation abundant in the late Cretaceous. Dicraeosaurus. Dicraeosaurus was a huge plant-eater discovered in Tendaguru, Tanzania, when 250 tons of dinosaur bones were collected in one great excavation. Other dinosaurs found at this site include Brachiosaurus and the plated Kentrosaurus. Dicraeosaurus had forked spines attached to its vertebrae that contained back-strengthening ligaments, a feature that set this herbivore apart from Diplodocus and Apatosaurus. Dicraeosaurus also had a much shorter neck than its relatives, and its tail did not taper to the end in the fashion of a whip. Dicraeosaurus lived during the late Jurassic time period and grew to be between 41 and 60 feet long. Dilophosaurus. Living in North America during the early Jurassic period, Dilophosaurus was one of the first large carnosaurs on Earth. It roamed the western United States, preying upon the relatively defenseless plant-eaters that shared its habitat. Dilophosaurus had a very unusual skull structure. Although Dilophosaurus's head was large for its body like most of the later carnosaurs, its bone structure was lighter in weight. This dinosaur's teeth were also atypical, and that they were arranged more like a crocodile's teeth than those of a Tyrannosaurus. Long, thin teeth were located in the front of its jaws, separate from the rest. Dilophosaurus was 20 feet long and appears to have been able to move more quickly than its larger descendants. Dimorphodon. Dimorphodon was a flying reptile native to Europe in the early Jurassic period. It had a 4-foot wingspan and a disproportionately large head common to the suborder of rhampharynx. Dimorphodon's 8-inch skull was deeper than most in this group, resembling that of a modern puffin. It had a long tail and wings made of bat-like skin stretched over its hand bones. Its skeleton was found in England in the mid-19th century. Diplodocus. Ranging in size from 70 to 100 feet, Diplodocus is the longest dinosaur known from complete skeletons. This herbivore's neck was over 20 feet long, and its tail was 40 feet long. Diplodocus weighed about 12 tons, roughly 1/3 the weight of Apatosaurus. Diplodocus held its tapered tail off the ground to balance its body, and also used it as a whip to ward off predators like Allosaurus. The name Diplodocus means double beam, referring to this dinosaur's unusual vertebrae that supported the tail with a construction that resembled a suspension bridge. Diplodocus had small peg-like teeth to pull the most tender leaves from the tops of trees. It then swallowed stones called gastroliths to help digest plant material it ate. Diplodocus inhabited the western United States during the late Jurassic period. Dravidosaurus. Dravidosaurus was the last of the stegosaurs, and the only one of this group of dinosaurs to be found in India. No one has found a complete skeleton of this 6-foot herbivore, but a skull and scattered bones have been studied since 1979. Dravidosaurus had plated armor on its back and unusual spines that bulged in the middle. Dromaeosaurus. Dromaeosaurus was a small predator discovered in 1914 but not fully described until 1969. Only one skull and some foot bones were found,
but teeth thought to belong to this dinosaur have been reported throughout North America. Dromaeosaurus appears to have been similar to Deinonychus. Both had curved, deadly sickle-shaped claws on the second toe of each foot, and both had large skulls for their bodies. Packs of Dromaeosaurs probably hunted large herbivores of the time.
Tromesiamimus. Tromesiamimus was a North American ostrich dinosaur whose name means emu mimic, as this dinosaur resembled that large flightless bird of Australia. Tromesiamimus was 12 feet long and was similar to the other ornithomimids, except its arms were longer and slimmer and it had larger eyes. This interesting omnivore was lightweight with hollow bird-like bones. Its toothless beak was used to eat fruit as well as capture insects and lizards. Tromesiamimus lived in the late Cretaceous time period. Its skeletal remains were found in Alberta, Canada.
Edmontonia. Edmontonia would have intimidated even a starving Tyrannosaurus. Its heavily armored body had large spikes along the sides and forward-pointing shoulder spines that were probably used for sparring or shoving matches with other dinosaurs. Two excellent specimens of Edmontonia were discovered with the armor and spikes preserved in the same position they were in when the animal was alive.
Edmontosaurus. Edmontosaurus was one of the last dinosaurs on Earth before the Great Extinction occurred. Edmontosaurus was a 42-foot duck-billed dinosaur, one of the largest members of the family Hadrosauridae. Edmontosaurus weighed between 3 and 4 tons and had a large, flat head with oversized nostrils. These cavities may have allowed it to make specific noises or calls to communicate with members of its herd. Some Edmontosaurus fossils found include skin impressions revealing a rough, bumpy texture.
Elaphosaurus. Elaphosaurus was a lightweight, ostrich-like dinosaur with a long, flexible neck. Its head was small, but its brain was relatively large. Elaphosaurus had big eyes and a narrow, toothless beak. This 12-foot theropod was an omnivore, using its keen eyesight and quick wits to capture insects and small reptiles to supplement the vegetation it ate. Elaphosaurus lived in parts of Africa and North America during the late Jurassic time period. Elasmosaurus. The longest plesiosaur measured a remarkable 48 feet. Nearly half of this length was Elasmosaurus's neck, which was constructed from over 75 vertebrae. The neck culminated in a tiny head with sharp-toothed jaws. Elasmosaurus probably used its long, flexible neck to maneuver like a snake, chasing fish that darted around it. The long paddles attached to the sides of its body helped propel it through the water. A 19th century British paleontologist colorfully described Elasmosaurus as snakes threaded through the body of turtles. Fossilized remains of this late Cretaceous marine reptile were found in North America and Asia. Elmosaurus. Elmosaurus was a fast, agile theropod with long limbs and large feet. Partial skeletons recovered in China and Canada reveal that this dinosaur was between 6 and 10 feet long. Its diet is uncertain, but it seems likely that Elmosaurus ate insects and small reptiles or mammals. Elmosaurus shared some of the characteristics common to Oviraptor and Ornithomimus, but its unusual foot bones distinguished it from all other theropods. Eoraptor. In 1991, Argentine and American paleontologists uncovered a fossil that was over 230 million years old. Named Eoraptor, this small carnivore is the first true Saurischian dinosaur known, emerging at the very beginning of the dinosaur age. More than anything else, Eoraptor looked much like a modern turkey. strengthening the growing bond scientists are finding between dinosaurs and birds. Erlikosaurus. This 20-foot herbivore was a member of the rare family of Segnosaurs. Paleontologists have long debated this dinosaur's dietary habits, but the majority believes Erlikosaurus was more likely to have been an herbivore. Segnosaurs were an odd group of Cretaceous dinosaurs that combined characteristics of the sauropods, theropods, and ornithischians. Eudomorphodon. Eudomorphodon was the oldest of the pterosaurs, found in marine rocks that indicate that it lived during the latter part of the Triassic time period. This flying reptile had a wingspan of 2 to 3 feet, and its remains were found in northern Italy. Eudomorphodon wings were formed of a skin-like membrane stretched over its hands, supported by long primitive fourth finger bones. From the way its wings were attached, scientists surmised that Eudomorphodon flapped its wings actively instead of gliding, skimming the water to catch fish from the seashores it inhabited. Euhelopus. Euhelopus was very similar to the North American sauropod Camarasaurus, but was longer and slimmer with an extended snout. Its lengthy neck allowed it to browse in treetops and spot would-be attackers from an elevated vantage point. Euhelopus weighed between 15 and 20 tons, thriving in Asia throughout the late Jurassic time period. Euoplocephalus. Euoplocephalus was a medium-sized ankylosaur that fed on a variety of low-lying plants. It had studded bands of armor firmly rooted in its thick, tough hide. Its head was encased in a helmet of bone, and pointy spines grew from the side of its head, top of its shoulders, and base of its tail. This plant-eating dinosaur was broad and heavy with short, stumpy legs that did not allow for running. Even though it was 18 feet long, Euoplocephalus needed its weighty armor for protection against the carnivorous dinosaurs that shared its North American habitat. Euskellosaurus. Little is known about this large prosauropod that was described from limb bones and vertebrae. It made its home in what is now South Africa and lived during the latter part of the Triassic period. Euskellosaurus is estimated to have been about 33 feet long. The slow-moving plant-eater walked on all 4 legs and was named by Thomas H. Huxley in 1866. Eustreptospondylus. Because their builds were so similar, Eustreptospondylus was thought to be a megalosaurus until 1964, when an almost complete skeleton was discovered in southern England. Even though some parts of the skull were missing, the skeleton of Eustreptospondylus is the most well-preserved of any European carnosaur. Eustreptospondylus had a large head and sharp serrated teeth. Its arms were short but strong, and it had a curved, mobile neck. This aggressive carnivore grew to be about 23 feet long. Gallimimus. Gallimimus was a speedy, agile member of the family Ornithomimidae, the ostrich dinosaurs. Gallimimus had powerfully built hind legs that enabled it to run as fast as a modern racehorse. Its arms, however, were weaker than those of other ornithomimids, and its hands were not capable of grasping objects. Gallimimus had a large brain and keen eyesight as well. An omnivore, it had a toothless beak with which it snatched insects and lizards to supplement the vegetation it ate. An adult Gallimimus grew to be 13 to 19 feet long, making it the largest of all the ornithomimids. Its tapered tail was held stiffly, balancing its body perfectly as it ran. The fossilized remains of this interesting dinosaur were discovered in Asia. Gasosaurus. Gasosaurus was named in 1985 in honor of contributions made by the petroleum industry, but there is scant information about its possible lifestyle. It was 13 feet long and 8 feet tall, and lived in Asia during the mid-Jurassic period. Gasosaurus had curved, notched fangs typical of the group of medium-sized carnivores. Hadrosaurus. The American paleontologist Joseph Leidy described the first dinosaur skeleton found and mounted. It was a partial skeleton of the duck-billed Hadrosaurus, unearthed in New Jersey by William P. Folk in 1858. Hadrosaurus was a large herbivore that stood upright when it walked, prompting some to liken it to the modern kangaroo. Hadrosaurus nipped off plants with the beak-like tip of its snout, then chewed its food using the rows of teeth along the insides of its cheeks. Alticosaurus. This primitive coelurosaur was discovered in Germany in 1908. From the skull and two skeletons found, scientists have determined that Alticosaurus had short arms with five-fingered hands and powerful hind limbs that gave it its name, springing reptile. The Triassic carnivore had pointy teeth embedded in the jaws of its 1.5-foot-long skull. Haplocanthosaurus. Haplocanthosaurus was a 70-foot herbivore that inhabited North America during the late Jurassic period. This sauropod had a long back and neck, but its tail was shorter than other dinosaurs in this family. Haplocanthosaurus walked on all fours to support its great weight, and it fed on huge quantities of leaves torn from treetops. Haplocanthosaurus was named by John B. Hatcher in 1903. Harpymimus. Harpymimus was an unusual ornithomimid that lived in Mongolia during the Cretaceous period. Unlike other species in this group, Harpymimus had little teeth lining the insides of its beak. Its hands were also different, falling between the flexible grasping hands of small theropods and the stiff straight-fingered hands of the later ostrich dinosaurs. These unique forelimbs inspired Asian paleontologists Barsbold and Pearl to name this dinosaur Harpymimus, after the mythological Greek harpies, flying bird-like females that snatched up their unfortunate victims in their hands. The structure of the 3.5-foot skeleton found suggested that Harpymimus was a transitionary dinosaur possessing an interesting combination of features from dinosaurs that lived before and after its time. Herrerasaurus. Over 230 million years ago, before dinosaurs became dominant on Earth, a primitive carnivorous reptile made its habitat in cool, moist areas of what is now Argentina. Herrerasaurus does not fall into one of the orders of dinosaurs, but it is thought to be an ancestor that led to the emergence of the prosauropods. Unlike later meat-eaters, this 10-foot-long dinosaur had 4-toed hind feet with claws. No skull has been found, but Herrerasaurus had a body structure similar to the theropods with short forelimbs. Lightly built at 250 to 500 pounds, Herrerasaurus probably preyed upon small reptiles it caught by surprise. Heterodontosaurus. Heterodontosaurus was an unusual 3-foot-long dinosaur discovered in 1962. An herbivore, this dinosaur's skull was the size of a rabbit's, and its jaws contained 3 types of teeth: incisors, canines, and molars, like the teeth of modern mammals. Apparently fleet-footed, it escaped predators by dashing away on its hind legs. Its clawed 5-fingered hands were used for clutching plants. Heterodontosaurus lived in South Africa during the early Jurassic period. Homalocephaly. Homalocephaly was a 10-foot pachycephalosaur with a flat, bony head instead of a domed head like most in this group. From the size of its eye sockets and nasal cavity, scientists have concluded that it is likely Homalocephaly had excellent sight and sense of smell. It also had an unusually wide hip and pelvic area, which some believe may indicate that this dinosaur gave live birth to its young instead of laying eggs. Hylaeosaurus. Hylaeosaurus was the oldest member of the family of nodosaurs and one of the first dinosaurs known in England. This primitive armored herbivore grew to 13 to 20 feet in length. It had large curved plates on its back and tail, as well as spikes of bone emerging from its sides.
Abelisaurus had a small, narrow head ending in a horny, toothless beak. It ate ferns and other vegetation found close to the ground. Abelisaurus. Abelisaurus was a 30-foot hadrosaur that lived in North America during the late Cretaceous period. It had a helmet-like crest and sail along its back that distinguished it from other duck-billed plant-eaters. The crest was connected to the nasal cavity by way of a hollow tube. Scientists believe this is evidence that Abelisaurus made noises, probably low-pitched, to communicate with others of its species. The sail or ridge along its back was made up of a row of spines covered by skin. It may have regulated body temperature, or it may have been simply for display. Hypsilophodon. Hypsilophodons have been found in North America, Europe, and most notably Antarctica. Their long legs and toes indicate that they were very fast runners, and their short five-fingered hands were used to grasp leaves and other vegetation. Scientists initially thought that the bones they had found belonged to young iguanodons. Ichthyosaurus. Ichthyosaurus is the most well-known prehistoric marine reptile to date. It first appeared in the early Jurassic period and thrived well into the Cretaceous period. Hundreds of fossilized skeletons have been found in North America and Europe. Fossilized skin pigment cells were also preserved, indicating that Ichthyosaurus was a reddish-brown color in life. Another discovery included the fossilized remains of a female in the process of giving live birth to her young, tail first as in modern whales. Ichthyosaurus had a torpedo-shaped body with a high dorsal fin on the back, caudal fin, and paddles on the sides. Like the dolphins they resemble, Ichthyosaurus had to break water to breathe, but did so through nostrils, not blowholes. These large-eyed, graceful creatures ate a variety of fish and mollusks. Iguanodon. Found in abundance on 4 continents, Iguanodon was the second dinosaur to be formally named. The 30-foot 5-ton ornithopod may have been a precursor to the family of hadrosaurs or duckbills. It ran on its hind legs, but used all 4 legs for walking, as evidenced by the hoof-like nails present on 3 of 5 fingers on each hand. The thumbs ended in pointed claws or spikes that may have been used for self-defense. Like many ornithopods, Iguanodon had no teeth in the front of its jaws and ridged cheek teeth along the sides and back of its jaws for grinding plant material.